Hello, and thanks for clicking into another edition of Sasquatch Encounters. I want to thank everyone for all the great comments, the likes, and of course, subscribing to the Big Truth channel. Keep them coming. Today's guest is Dale Ryan from Southeast Texas. How you doing today, Dale?
I'm all right, Ed. Good to talk to you, buddy.
Good. Hey, now, I generally start these off. I like to ask, how did you get interested in the Bigfoot subject in the first place?
Well, yeah, that's an easy one. I'm 60 years old, and like a lot of older guys like me, in 1972, a movie came out called The Legend of Boggy Creek. And I saw that movie with a buddy of mine down in Freeport, Texas. And before that, I had never heard of this animal. Didn't know it existed, had no previous knowledge of the Patterson-Gimlin film and the encounters over there in Northern California. But when I saw that movie, I was like, wow, is this possible?
Right.
I mean, it was pretty much a recreation, but it was based on facts. And, I became interested really at that time.
Sure. And now you had an experience when you were younger too, or your grandfather experience that he told you about. Is that right?
Well, my family, my mom's family, Hammonds, moved to Sweeney, Texas around 1911, 1912 from Gallatin, Tennessee. And they came down to Texas. My grandma had 13 kids.
Oh, wow.
Had big families back in those.
Sure.
But they built a house here in Sweeney, and they also built. My grandpa, Will Hammond, was kind of like the area vet back before there were vet schools, and so there's a farming community, a lot of farming going on around here. And he also raised mules that he sold to farmers to plow the fields. And this story was relayed to me when I was a young boy. Unfortunately, my grandpa passed away a year before I was born. I was born in 1953. But I remember hearing this story as a young boy, and I remember by the Hammond home place, there was a big red barn. I mean, just like you would see in fairy book stories and tales, big red barn with a hayloft in top and in the top. And they had, my grandpa had cattle, and he had pigs and chickens and goats and horses, and, not uncommon for, that time, and especially in this area. And the story goes, it must have taken place either in the late 20s or the early 30s. I'm not really sure exactly when.
Right.
But he, one night, late at night, early in the morning, this is before electricity, no lights down here, he heard all the farm animals raising Cain, like there was something there. And this was during the Depression time, or close to the Depression time. Times were tough down here. Well, they were tough everywhere. But he had a problem with people stealing chickens. And so he got up and put on his overalls and grabbed his shotgun and went out the back door of the house there and headed toward the barn, toward the chicken coop. And he got about halfway. The barn, I'm going to guess, was probably maybe 80 feet away from the house. And he got about halfway. And out of the barn came a bear that it had its arms full of corn from the corn crib that it got out of the barn. Right. And the bear was walking on 2 feet. And there were little black bear in this area at the time. Hunters would ride the train out of Houston, come down here. I'm about 60 miles southwest of Houston, about 19 miles off the Gulf. But they would come down here and hunt black bears. So there were black bear in the area. But the story, thinking back, the story was always ending in a bear walking on 2 feet.
Right.
So he knew something wasn't right, because bears don't walk on 2 feet. Sure. But, the human brain, we try to understand things that we see and make sense of them, and this thing was big and hairy and had to be a bear. There was no knowledge, I'm sure, back then of this Bigfoot. So but like I said, the story was repeated over and over and over about the bear walking on 2 feet. Well, I really never thought that much about it. I thought it was kind of an interesting story, a cute story that happened, with my grandpa. But, when I, like in the last 4 years, I became interested. I'm retired. I've got time on my hands, and, I'm trying to understand, what this is that we're talking about. And I spoke to some gentlemen about my grandfather's encounter, and they said, Dale, bears don't walk on 2 feet. And I thought, well, you know what? They're right. I mean, they may take a few steps, Ed, but, sure. They don't. They're not bipedal. Okay.
Right.
And so I thought, wow. Did my grandpa see a Bigfoot? Huh. And, of course, we'll never know. Now, I add to that, there were some other things going around this area at that same time. Let me pause it for a second and tell you
Sure.
that the road, I'm about a quarter of a mile from that house right now. The old barn is long gone. The house is still there. But about 200 yards east of that house was an old Amoco oil field road. It was shell. It's now paved, and I live on it now. But back in the early days, the 50s, 60s, and 70s, it was a shell road. And the name of the shell road was called White Monster. And, of course, us guys, teenagers, we made real good use of that back in the day. We'd take our girlfriends down there. They're not going to get too far away. Because this road is, but there were never any reports that I have been able to find, and I've talked to locals, gentlemen and women, try to, ascertain why was it called White Monster? What was down there? What gave it that name? And, I get a reply that if you do any reading about Bigfoot or listening to stories, there again, people are trying to explain something they don't understand, and the main story I get was, there was this train that derailed down there, which there are railroad tracks on White Monster. Train derailed, and this white ape got loose. Well, there are no, Lyle Blackburn has done research on train derailments, and you can still find them, and there was no train that derailed, circus train that derailed in this area at that time. But there again, sure. We try to understand things that we don't understand and try to make sense of them. But I still don't know, where that road got that name. Was there something down there? And, was it white in color? Was it because the shell dust that was kicked up by the vehicles running up and down it,
Right.
Made the animal appear to be white? I don't know. It's something that maybe someday I'll get an answer to that, but at this point, I don't have an answer, Ed.
Right.
But also
definitely interesting, though.
At the same time period, Ed, and you read the article that I sent you, dated in July. I don't remember the exact date, in July of 1926.
Right. That
I found at the Matagorda County Historical Museum. There was a woman she was called the Wild Woman of Hasima. Hasima was a small settlement just northwest of Sweeney. There were very few houses there, but there was a school, and many Mexican migrant workers lived there.
Sure.
And they worked the farms in the area. Well, there was a woman, and I've got lots of documentation on this, that there actually was a wild woman that lived in those woods. They tried to catch her. The woods are real thick, Ed. I mean, some of them you can walk through, but some of them you can't walk through, and you sure can't ride a horse through.
Right.
And she was sighted many times. No clothes, dark-skinned, long hair. At one point, she came out of the woods and tried to talk to a Mexican woman that was walking to Sweeney from that area, but couldn't, and then ran back in the woods. Local farmers and ranchers tried to catch her, and they could not catch her. They tried for years to catch her. They went to a local prison down at Clemens, which is close to Freeport at the time, and they approached the warden about using the prison dogs to try to help track her and catch her. And the warden, of course, said, oh, no, because these things, when they find it, they're going to get all over it, and he didn't know what we were dealing with, and so he wouldn't let them use the dogs. And eventually the story just died down and she disappeared. Now, what happened? Where she went? Did she move on? We don't know. There's theories there that there was a report at the time of a shipwreck down at the mouth of the Colorado near Matagorda, and people found, and this was around the same time period, a little earlier, they found, I think it was like 25 bodies, and one area of thought is maybe she was a shipwreck survivor that walked up to this area and became feral, lived in the woods. Sure. She would steal chickens from local farms and eat berries and pretty much just went crazy. But what directed me toward that research was my grandfather's experience, Sure. I mean, when I'm thinking of this hairy wild woman, you hear these stories about hairy men in the woods. I'm thinking, could she have been a Bigfoot? But the more that I've investigated and read and asked questions, I think she was a feral human. Sure. But, in this area, like I said, there were some weird things going on. So anyway, that's, kind of kept my interest alive. Sure. There.
If you don't mind, if anyone's interested in looking that up, that was in the Matagorda County Tribune in Bay City, Texas on Friday, July 16th, 1926. And apparently it was something that happened on June 12th of the same year. So that's, if anyone wants to look that up, they can. So, go ahead. I just want to put that out there.
Yeah, sure. Well, and I guess to kind of fast forward a ways, a pretty good ways. I worked down in the chemical plants and on the docks here in this area until I retired a few years ago, raised 5 kids, put them through school, and I've now got 5 beautiful grandkids with 2 more on the way this year.
Awesome.
I'm thrilled about that.
Sure.
I love my grandkids.
Of course.
And now I'm glad that I didn't kill my kids because now I got grandkids to enjoy. But anyway, my interest peaked even more, and I can't tell you exactly what happened, what incident, what I read. Several years ago, 3 or 4 years ago, and I became involved with a group of guys that were really interested in this animal, and a group of educated men, college professors, doctors, high school teachers, and they were actively trying to find this animal. Okay. And I went on a hunt with them back several years ago, about 2 years ago. Spent 5 days in the Diamichi Mountains in southeastern Oklahoma.
Okay.
And let me first say, a great group of guys and gals. There were a couple of girls too.
Sure.
But this area was way back in the mountains. we traveled like 2 hours off the blacktop to get to this area, up logging roads, over mountains, back down through valleys, and this area, they were pretty sure they were there. In fact, they were certain that they were there. They had experiences there in the past, and I thought, well, okay, I believed already. I believed,
sure.
but I had yet to experience anything, and so I went, and wow, Ed, craziest 5 days of my life. We had some close encounters with Bigfoot. I hesitate to call it the animal because I don't want to upset people that say, no, it's not an animal. It's so I apologize right now. We're an animal. We're a human animal,
Exactly.
I don't know what this thing is, Ed. I don't know whether it is a bipedal ape or if it's a human hybrid. I don't know, but
sure.
I'm trying to find out, and I try to keep an open mind. And back to the mountains. Let me give you a couple of instances of things that happened while I was in there.
Yeah, please do.
It was, they called it a cabin, but Ed, it was more of a shack. There were holes in the ceiling, holes in the floor. It had probably been there, from back in the early 1900s. It was owned by a family. But these things would continuously bombard us. There was a mountain close by, like 40 feet behind the cabin. And these things, it's a 3,000-foot mountain, and these things would continuously bombard us with rocks off this mountain. And I'm talking about rocks the size of your fist. I'm not talking about pebbles.
Right.
Things that if hit you, it was going to hurt you.
Sure.
They would hit vehicles. They would hit ATVs. They would hit the cabin, the roof of the cabin. There were several outbuildings around there, and they would hit them.
Let me ask you real quick.
Sure.
Let me ask you, you keep referring to they. Did you feel like there was more than one throwing them?
Oh, I know there were more than one, and I'll tell you how here in just a second.
Sure.
They were playing with us, Ed. There were several outbuildings, like maybe other little, I should say not outbuildings, but really little cabins also. And there was one really nice one up in there, but these weren't habitated year-round. This family would come up in there, and they would go up for, go deer hunting and stuff for days and maybe weeks at a time. If you wanted to escape, this is a perfect place to escape. You could not get cell phone connections. You could not use your GPS. The woods were so thick. So if you wanted to go hide, this is a great place to hide. And it was a beautiful, beautiful area. There were little streams all over the place coming out, and there were bear in the area, which I quickly became comfortable with the animal. I could see that they were non-aggressive. Because let's face it, Ed, if those guys would wanted this, they could have come down off that mountain and walked right through that cabin, and there ain't nothing we could have done.
Absolutely.
But they didn't do it. But they would ram the side of the cabin. One time when we went out and looked, and there was an indention about 8 foot up. Okay, and that was either a head or a shoulder. We're thinking it was a shoulder. But I wasn't concerned about their aggressiveness. They're very curious. Lots of eye shine. Bear, bear will kill you,
For sure.
But even more concerned than the bear was there's moonshiners up in there, and those little boys shoot and ask questions later, because they've got everything they need there. It's a remote area. They've got fresh water coming out of the ground, plenty of wood around to build fires. We never did come up on any of those guys, but we were aware that they may be in that area as well.
Sure.
But these things, you could hear them coming down off the mountain. You could hear them going back up the mountain. At night times when they were most active. You could hear them, and this, I hate to say the exact angle. It was over a 45-degree angle. This mountain was, and out of that mountain like they were on a bungee cord. So fast. I mean, tremendously fast.
Right.
We had one guy one night. This was not when I was there, so this is knowledge that I received from people that were there. One guy cooked some bacon at night, and a typical guy, he just left his skillet outside and didn't clean it. It sat there. And that night they heard footsteps around the cabin. There was a wooden porch, about a 4-foot wooden porch all the way around the cabin, and you could hear anything that walked on it. And they heard creaks in the boards, and they we knew what it was. We knew what it was.
Sure.
Nobody was brave enough to jump up and grab a gun and run outside and try to see what it was, but we knew what it was. The next morning somebody looked at that skillet and they said, "Hey, come look at this." And in that skillet was a giant finger swipe.
Huh. Just one finger?
With just one finger. But, I mean, the one finger was like 2 of our fingers.
Right.
But you could tell it was just one finger had swiped that grease. We knew what it was. These things, the reason I tell you, we're pretty sure there's more than one, maybe a family, maybe even more than that, is they would play with us, okay? This is what they would do. We would be outside. This is daylight, broad daylight. We'd be outside sitting and talking, just having a good time camping, beautiful area, beautiful day, and I can't remember, Ed, exactly what time of the year it was. I wished I could. I'm not going to make it up.
Sure.
But I know it wasn't cold. So it had to be sometime between April and May, and then maybe October. But it wasn't cold in there. It wasn't nasty.
Gotcha.
We'd be sitting out there, and you'd hear a rock hit an outbuilding, like maybe 100 yards, or another cabin maybe 100 yards, maybe not that far, to the west. And we'd get up to investigate, and then you'd hear another rock hit one on another cabin 100 yards to the east. It's like they were messing with us, like, oh, come on, guys, And I say these rocks are coming off these mountains. They weren't rolling down the mountain, Ed. They were coming out, and you could hear them coming through the trees going, bam.
Right.
Bam. They weren't rolling down. Something was throwing these rocks off the mountain. Well, now, bears don't throw, Ed.
Right.
And, Bigfoot is known to throw rocks, throw sticks. So we had one encounter with a gentleman, and this was late at night, early in the morning again, laying on his bed. His bed was next to a window, which my bed was next to a window too, and I can tell you, I didn't sleep, I kind of slept with one eye open. I kind of scooted over as far from the windows. It could be those windows. Some of them had screen on them. Some didn't. Some had a partial screen. Well, this guy woke up. The guys in the cabin woke up and said, "Hey, what?" This guy was saying, "Stop it. Quit it." And, of course, it's pitch black, and everybody hits a headlamp or flashlight, and they're counting heads, and everybody's in there. And they say, what's going on? He goes, "It pushed me."
Oh, wow.
I said, "What do you mean it pushed you?" He was laying on his side with his back to the window. A hand reached in the window and pushed him on the hip, just kind of, would roll him over on his stomach.
Right, just a little nudge.
Exactly, twice.
Yeah. Oh,
okay.
Wow.
That's crazy, Ed.
Yeah, that would get my attention.
But they're, again, non-aggressive, it could have reached there and grabbed him, yanked him, pulled him out of the window, and that'd been it.
Right.
We wouldn't have found him ever again. He'd have been gone, another one of those 411s. But, and there's a lot of deer in the area, plenty of sources for food, and like I say, fresh water. It was an awesome 5 days. One day, and this is my personal experience, and I'm a little ashamed of it, and when I finish telling you, understand why.
Okay.
There were only 3 of us in there that day. We would go in shifts. Guys would come in and take vacation, come in and then leave, and then come back. And there was only 3 of us in there that day, and we heard a rock hit a cabin to the west. And the other guy who had more seniority in the group than I had said, Dale, go check that out. And I think about the same time we heard one to the east. He said, I'm going to go check that one out. So I walked down to, and by now I'm getting tired. I mean, okay, it's not like in the beginning you jump up, you run, and you go, and then you get there and there's nothing.
Right,
nothing,
right.
So it kind of becomes a mundane task. Okay, all right, I'll go look. So I ambled down this little path to this other cabin, and I got to where it was, and I was looking around the cabin to the left, to the right, back behind the cabin, and back behind a pile of wood, which was probably 60 feet in front of me. Another 20 or 30 feet behind that was some real thick bush.
Uh-huh.
And I'm looking, and I don't see nothing, Ed. I don't see nothing. But my head fixes on those bushes. And about that time, I heard the deepest growl. Even as far away as it was, it rattled. I could feel my chest rattle.
Sure.
I peed on myself. Not a lot,
right.
but a little bit,
Well, it would be scary. I don't think that's anything to be ashamed of. I mean, it's obviously embarrassing, but I wouldn't look at it as being ashamed of, because you're in a situation where you really don't know what these things are, and it growls at you that you can feel it.
It's like, when you're watching a parade and the big bass drum comes by and you feel your chest by. That I felt that, okay, and this growl, and then I smelled what I could best describe as a wet horse smell, but strong wet horse smell.
Right.
Well, I mean, after I kind of regained my composure there, I hollered, and one of the other guys come running, and because I wasn't going back in there by myself,
right.
One of the other guys come running, and we went back there and looked around, and of course there was nothing; it was gone,
Sure.
But I mean, that was pretty awesome. I mean, that was a pretty close encounter for me. Now I would like to have even closer encounters. I know that probably sounds crazy, but I mean, come on, here we are, grown men and women running around the woods looking for this big 8-foot tall hairy thing, weighs 750 pounds. That in itself was pretty crazy. But I was never afraid, though, Ed. I was never afraid of Bigfoot. I was not afraid that it was going to hurt me. Right. Could I shoot one? And I've come to this conclusion, and I struggle with this, Ed. I struggle with this. Is it a bipedal ape? Is it a human hybrid? What is it? What is it? And I think that people claim that they know what it is, they're mistaken. I mean, we can't even prove that it exists, and you're going to tell me that it's a bipedal ape? I'm sorry.
Right.
We're supposed to be pretty open-minded people, but anyway, I don't know what it is, but my thinking changed. I had to do a little soul searching, like, man, do we really need to do this? I understand, and I met Dr. Meldrum. I had the utmost respect for him. I met him at a conference several years ago and was fortunate enough to sit down and chat with him for about 15, 20 minutes. He had already spoken and was selling some of his books and field guides and stuff. And, I know what he believes. But I guess, this is a personal deal. You got to make up your own mind,
Right.
You got to, like we spoke about earlier, you've got to, if you so choose. If you don't want to believe in this thing, I don't care. doesn't bother me. I'm not out here trying to convince the world that Bigfoot exists.
Right.
But if you're interested in it, and I've given a couple of presentations recently up in the Houston area to some very highly educated women. They were all graduates of the University of Houston, and I was not sure how this was going to go when I started. But actually, did one presentation, and it went so well. I had another group of the same women asked me to do a presentation to their group in another part of town, and I was surprised and pleased at the results I got. And what I tried to, the message that I tried to convey to them was, you know, if you're interested, there were several. There was one in particular. She dug her heels in right away. You know, there ain't enough stuff, and these things are big time. There ain't enough stuff for them to eat and all that. You know, hey, you know, there are people in this world that still don't think we went to the moon. You know, that was
absolutely.
in New Mexico or Arizona or somewhere. You know, and that's fine. You're just not going to convince them. And there again, I'm not in the business of trying to convince anybody. I don't make any money off of this. I'm not looking for any notoriety. You know, I do appreciate you allowing me to express my opinions and my experiences. And if that can help anybody, if that can perk some interest, get out there and do your research. You know, you can't. Obviously, we know you can't believe everything you see and read on the internet.
That's right.
I heard a guy say the other day, remember Abraham Lincoln's words, you can't believe everything you see on the internet. And then I heard this lady say, did he say that? And so, okay, never mind.
Yeah, never mind.
But, I mean, you know, you can, you know, if you so choose, you can figure out what's real and what's not real. And
right.
You can come to people like you, other people, and ask questions. You know, hey, ask questions. You know, I want to know. You know, I just want to know what is it. You know, I know it exists. I've had enough experiences to know that it exists. Let me share another experience with you. In the same area of Oklahoma, not too far away. Got a good friend who is a college professor, a good buddy. And I go up and hunt with him, hunt this animal, and we were in a state campground. But there were reported sightings in this area. And we were there, and there were 5 of us, him and 2 high school teachers and a retired railroad guy, and me. And I was the least experienced of them all. And we camped out there for a few days, and one night we were sitting in our chairs. I remember like it was last night. It was 12:30 at night, no moon, pitch black. There was a little lake right behind us, and we had our chairs lined up all in a row facing the wood line. And we've been sitting there, I don't know, maybe an hour, maybe 2, sharing stories, talking. And one of the guys said, I shine 10 o'clock. So we all looked, you know, the military, you know, 10 o'clock would be to your left at about a 45-degree angle. And there in the wood line, probably 60 feet away, was a set of red eyes.
Oh, wow.
About 4 foot off the ground. But Ed, you know, our eyes are about 1.5 inches, 2 inches apart.
Right.
These eyes had to be at least 4 inches apart. Big head.
It would have been quite a bit larger than ours, yeah.
Exactly. Whatever it was had a big head. And, you know, our eyeshine is not red, so, and we know or we believed what was around that area. So, I mean, we obviously felt like, you know, that was him.
Sure.
Well, we, in unison pretty much, all stood up, and when we did, those red eyes went from about 4 foot to 8 foot.
Huh.
It stood up. It was squatted down. And then it just turned, and we could hear it walk away. There was no moon, nothing to reflect, you know, nothing to, you know, how its eyes glowed like that, I don't know, you know. There's all kind of theories can believe. Some of them I have a hard time believing. You know,
Right.
I heard some things recently that I was told that, I'll be honest, Ed, I'm still having a hard time wrapping my head around. Is it possible? Is it possible? Well, yeah, it's possible. Is it probable? I don't know.
Right.
Maybe not. You know, that's why I continue my quest. I continue to search for answers. You know, this is a kind of a passion of mine. My 5 kids think I'm crazy. I've got 2 little granddaughters that believe. They've heard me ramble enough. They believe. Anybody that's, I'm going to give a couple of plugs. Anybody that's got any kids out there, there's a guy named Mike Mays has got a book out. You can get it on Amazon. It's called Patty, and it's based on the Patterson-Gimlin film, but it's an excellent book. A beautiful of the guy that did the backgrounds, and I think his last name was Swain. I believe he's from Arkansas. But anyway, it's a great book for kids.
Cool.
Very interesting book. But and I've got probably a dozen different books on, you know, on Bigfoot because I'm interested, you know. And,
Sure.
You know, there's a lot of people that, you know, there's a lot of haters out there that just want to automatically say, oh, hell no, you know, there ain't no way. And
right.
And those you just got to let go, you know. I mean, and I respect everybody's beliefs. I respect everybody's opinions. Everybody has a right to their opinion. But, you know, I want to say again, you know, passion is good. Okay, passion is blind passion is not good.
It's well put.
And let me just give you an analogy. You know, when you were a young man growing up, and you met this little gal, and man, was good looking, and Mama said, I don't think you need to be messing with her. Well, you know, you had some other body part telling you something different, you know. That's blind passion, you know, and that can be a bad thing, you know. But there again, that's people's choices. You know, everybody's got a right to make their own choice, and I respect that. You know, I'm not going to call anybody wrong. And I thought years ago some of the things that I believe now I thought were absolutely crazy.
Right.
There ain't no way. It's impossible, you know. But if you do some research on the animal, you look back, you know, there's Native American and Canadian Indians. You know, this thing has been around a long time, Ed, a long time.
Sure.
And, you know, to just flat out deny its existence, I mean, there's just been too many reports, too many encounters. You know, I wonder, and I'm trying to figure it out in my little area here around Sweeney, were there other encounters? Because think about it, Ed. Okay, let's say you're a farmer, okay, and you're raising turnips or squash or whatever, and you wake up one morning and you go out and look in your fields, and there's these big 14, 15, 16, 17-inch footprints, and your squash is all tore up. Now, are you going to call the sheriffs? Are you going to tell all the other? No, you're not.
Right.
Number one, if you do, Ed, they're going to think you're crazy.
Sure.
Number two, if they believe you, you're going to have every crazy son of a bitch that can get their hand on a gun all over your farm in no time at all.
Right.
So the best thing you can do is just keep your mouth shut. You know.
Absolutely right.
And know that it's there. See, there's something there. You know, this ain't Cousin Fred, you know, in your squash patch in the middle of the night. You know, there's something there. And we'll never know. I mean, you know, I think probably for every one documented report, there are probably tens, 20s, maybe hundreds of undocumented reports that we don't know anything about and never will know anything about.
I agree 100%.
And I can understand that, Ed. I mean, I see the logic behind that now. I didn't before, but I do now. So if just a certain small, let's just say 2 or 3 or 4 of them are right, we got something in the woods, Ed. You know?
Yeah.
If it ain't Bigfoot, what is it? You know, what is it?
Right.
So anyway, I am interested in the animal, and I enjoy listening to stories, and I enjoy the videos that you put out, or the audios.
Well, thank you.
They're all informative. They give different people's opinions and ideas and viewpoints, and they relate their experiences. And if you listen to it enough, I just don't see how you can't believe that there's something there.
I agree. And go ahead.
If you don't care, that's good. That's okay. Like I say, we're not going to convince the world. I mean, even if we have on a table, there are those that aren't going to believe, and, at Rick Dyer, I tell you what, I hope they hang his ass. There's a petition going around to get the federal government to, I don't know if you've seen it or not.
I did.
To people to sign, that ain't right, Ed. That ain't right, and it's really sad, and it's a detriment to people like you that are honest people that are just, really serious about this, and not trying to make a quick buck. How much money are you making off of this, Ed?
I don't know how much you're going to send me, Dale. I'm not making anything, so I do it because I do it. Right.
My point. That's my point. This guy, he was a known hoaxer, but there's enough people that just don't know his background and the things that he's done in the past. He has no credibility. But, as people are jumping up and grabbing their kids and running down, look at this Bigfoot,
Right.
We all know now that it was all a hoax,
Yeah, I was going to say that empire is crumbling, and it's crumbling very, very, very fast. So I do think that here very, very soon, that whole thing is going to be in the past. I think that's coming really, really soon.
Well, I hope so. And I hope somehow, some way, there is some recourse there, because people that do that need to pay the price. This guy I read like $65,000 on this, Ed. On people's ignorance,
right.
Claiming it to be something that it wasn't. I mean, that's got to be false advertising. That's got to be fraud. That's just downright wrong. And that's my opinion. If you think differently, and you're people out there, big Rick Dyer supporters, you go right ahead. You're welcome to your thoughts. But those are mine. Right now, Ed Brown gave me the microphone, so that's my fault.
That's right, and I agree. And I can tell you that I've made this comment here in the past, and I don't think I've done it publicly yet. But I will say that Rick Dyer is a very, very smart but uneducated man. He's slick. He's like a fox. However, if you read his writing and what he says and you listen to him talk, you can tell he's not very educated. But I'll tell you what, he's covered his butt pretty good. By his claims. When he says things like, "I'm not trying to convince you," it's up to you to believe what you want.
Right.
All those types of things are going to keep him from getting in trouble from doing what he's doing now or what he was doing. So he thought ahead. And I'll be honest with you, as much as I agree, I would love to see him do a little time for fraud and get in trouble for what he did. I would be just as happy as if he would just get out of the community and just go away.
No, you're right. If they could get some type of legal agreement written up to where he would just fade away into the sunset, I think most of us in the Bigfoot community would be really happy with that. Sure. When I go on one of the bugs of the websites and I see somebody say Rick Dyer, that's all I need to read. I don't read anymore. I don't read anymore. It's just going to make me mad. So it's unfortunate, Ed, but there's a lot of unfortunate things going on in this whole world today, and we just got to deal with it and cope with it. But it's unfortunate that it hurts those that are really serious, and maybe people that are just trying to become serious, and they see that, and they get totally the wrong beliefs. I mean, Lyle Blackburn in his book, based upon the Fouke Monster, another plug here for my buddy Lyle.
Of course.
The Beast of Boggy Creek, he talks about a guy who, I think this was in northwestern Louisiana, trying to pull a hoax in a gorilla suit, running across the road in front of a car. He got hit and killed.
Oh God. Yeah, I heard about that actually. I remember I've read that report. I heard about that. Yeah.
Not good. Not good. That's sad.
Mm-hmm.
And these people that are going out. I mean, I just don't believe that there are very, very few. Thank God that are trying to pull this stuff, because if you go in the woods into an area where there are known Bigfoot activity and you're running around in gorilla suit, that's that's a good way to commit suicide. I mean, come on, man. These guys got guns, and they will pull the trigger. Many of them will. Like I say, me personally, I just don't. I've come to the conclusion. I just don't think I could shoot one. If I was or my family was threatened, maybe yes.
Yeah.
Well, not me. Yes. But other than that, and there are bad ones, Ed. I mean, like I say that I believe that this is a non-aggressive animal. I mean, they're just like us. There's good ones and there's bad ones. You can, Google Hanobia and the one that was around Falk. They like to try to get into houses and kill farm animals and stuff like that.
Sure.
There are bad ones out there, just flat mean. But on the whole, on the majority, I feel like that they're non-aggressive. So I have, I've got on July 19th right here, and I'm looking at it, the Sweeney Community Library, which is part of the Missouri County Library System. I've been asked to do a presentation for little kids on Bigfoot.
Awesome.
And, of course, I'm not going to be able to share everything that I've shared with you. I'm going to have to water it down. But when they asked me to do this presentation over a month ago, maybe a month and a half ago, I'm thinking, okay, how am I going to approach this? What am I going to tell these little kiddies? And like I say, obviously I can't tell them everything that I know, because I don't want Mommy calling me at midnight saying little Susie can't go to sleep.
Right.
But how can I tell these kids that we want to kill one?
Right.
How can I? It's like Ed. It's like saying that we need to kill one of Santa Claus's reindeer to see if they can really fly.
Right.
I just don't believe. I just don't do that. I just don't believe we need to do that. What do we need to do? I don't know. We can't capture one. We can't. I mean, there's nothing. That you can haul around in the woods that's going to be big enough, strong enough to hold one.
Very good point.
To try to tranquilize one. Tranquilizers are going to be based on the animal's weight and size and all of that. And, okay, let's say you figure it out and you're able to figure out how much it's going to take and you drop him. Well, what the hell are you going to do with him when he comes to you?
Right, absolutely.
He's going to be really pissed off, And these things can pick up a full oil drum, 750-pound oil drum, and throw it.
Right.
I don't know about you, Ed, but I don't want to be around.
No. I don't want to be in front of that oil drum. And if you don't mind, I want to tell you a quick little story. You're talking about going out for the kids, and I got to tell you this story. I haven't told anybody this on the air publicly yet, but this is really kind of funny. A few years ago, I was invited to do a thing for the Boy Scouts, a little demonstration for the Boy Scouts on Bigfoot. Right?
That's cool. That's cool.
Oh, it was great. It was great. And basically, it was so that they could earn their folklore badge. And I asked the guy who set it up, Charlie. I said, so how do you want me to do it? Do you want me to make it scary? Do you want me to make it just kind of calm? Right. What do you want? And he said, the scarier the better. So I was like, all right, okay. So I give a demonstration, and and I'm showing pictures, and I'm playing sounds, and we went about an hour long into this thing. Had a great time. Afterwards, one of the parents came over, shook my hand, and he said, he shook my hand, said, nice to meet you, and he kind of leaned over and kind of whispered in my ear. He says, by the way, thanks a lot. You're not the one that has to take him camping. So that was a funny story. When you mentioned the kids, I knew I had to tell that story, but it was funny.
It's good to perk their interest. It's good to make. I mean, because children they're so delightful. I mean, and I can't say again how much I love my grandkids, Alexis, and Mackenzie, and Ricky, and Tyler, and Macy. I mean, and they hear Paul talking all this stuff all the time, and
sure.
The majority of them just shake their head, because they know Paul's crazy. But hey, that's okay, And like I say, I've got a couple of little ones that believe because they want to believe. I mean, if you don't want to believe, you're not going to believe.
Right.
If you're willing to believe, you got to be willing.
Sure.
People say, "Oh, I've got an open mind." No, you don't. It's nice to say that, but in actuality, and tell yourself that, and try to convince yourself that you do.
Right.
But I'm grateful. I'm glad, Ed, that we've got more and more people that are willing to look into this thing and to explore this thing. And God bless the internet. 20, 30,
Absolutely.
40 years ago. I mean, there's no way we could be doing this. It'd be you and me, and maybe you with a little some type of reel-to-reel recorder. But what are you going to do with it? What are you going to do with it? You're going to play it on a local Cincinnati radio station and reach 350 people.
If I'm lucky.
Yeah.
Well, it's funny because I wrote a book. I wrote a book back in 2007, and about Bigfoot, and I was on a radio station here in Cincinnati, and it was so funny because I started thinking, I was like, man, I don't think anybody heard me. I don't think not one person heard me on the radio.
Really?
So it was kind of funny, yeah. So it was okay, but it was just, it was just odd. It was a weird feeling.
Well, but yet, hey, you were able to you do exactly what I'm doing right now. Somebody gave you an opportunity to express your viewpoint, your opinion, and you can't make people. I can't make people hit play on this thing.
Right.
If they want to, good. If they don't want to, good. That's good.
Right.
You're not hurting my feelings. There again, I have absolutely nothing to gain here. I'm not looking for fame or fortune. I'm happy. I'm where I'm at. I'm at a point in my life where I don't have to chase the eagle anymore. I'm retired. But I do enjoy talking about Bigfoot, and I'm not afraid to talk and get up in front of people, and I say what I think, which, like I say, sometimes that gets me in trouble.
That's quite all right.
I need to learn tact, but at this stage of the game, that's probably not going to happen, Ed.
I hear you, buddy. I hear you.
Anyway, any other questions, or is there anything else that I can share with you today?
Well, buddy, I think you covered everything, and I'll tell you what, I've enjoyed having you on the show. I've enjoyed talking to you.
Well, thank you.
Your stories were very interesting. I think they came from the heart. I don't think they came from a book or anything like that. You know what I mean?
No.
And I appreciate you sharing them with us. If you have anything else you'd like to add, you're more than welcome.
No. Just once again, I appreciate you giving me the opportunity. We've talked several times in the past, and I enjoy reading and listening to what you put out. And I appreciate you giving me the opportunity to share some of this. And I just hope some people that will get something out of it.
Thank you very much, sir. You have a great day.
Yes, sir.